When I bet, I like getting something back, even if I lose. That's why I bet with FANATICS Sportsbook. When I place a bet with them, I earn fan cash, win or lose. I can flip fan cash into bonus bets or use it for new team apparel on fanatics.com. Download the FANATICS Sportsbook app and let the fan cash flow. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Connecticut residents call 888-789-7777. Massachusetts residents call 800-327-5050. New York residents call 877-8-HOPE-NY. Maryland residents visit mdgamblinghelp.org. Joining me now on the Knicks Film School Podcast, a returning guest who I have been looking forward to getting back on since his last appearance and since we last spoke on his show, Low Man Help, which is one of the absolute premier podcasts, video podcasts that you can listen to inform you about the NBA. He also has a newsletter on Substack. All that is to say, I was hoping when I had him back on, the mood would be a little brighter, but nonetheless, I am happy to have back on Marc Campbell. Hello, sir. How are you?
Thanks for having me, man. I'm doing well.
Well, that's because you're not a Knicks fan.
As always, my brother-in-law is and a deep fan. So my rooting interest, if I do have one, if I had a preference, I would love to see him happy. I wish no harm or ill will on the folks in Madison Square.
That's very nice of you, because there are Knicks fans in my life that, like, I'm a Knicks fan and they're Knicks fans, and I'm like, do I really want to see these people happy? And so it's really nice that you think that about your brother. What can you take me through? Did you watch the game with him? Did you get texts last night, this morning? What was that like?
So I'm in North Carolina. He lives in the city. So
okay, there you go.
Game one, phone blowing up. Okay. Tibbs is ripping jokes in the presser. Like, it's like, hey, man, I don't know if comedy is Tibbs' thing. It's dry humor. You just wouldn't understand, Mark. Game two, just crickets. Nothing.
Really? Nothing.
Zilch. He just, he cares. It means something to him, man. It means something. So yeah, this one hurt him. Like there weren't a lot of answers out there, not a ton to take away where you're like, man, you know what? Like, we just let this one slip. Like, yeah, I think he was feeling this one deep in the soul, No,
I think of game two. I'll call that one a woodwork loss, which is to say that whatever your particular gripe about this Knicks team is, it brought you out of the woodwork. If you're someone who secretly thinks that Jalen Brunson is way too ball dominant to ever lead a championship winning team, you came out of the woodwork after that. If you're someone who thinks that Cat is soft and doesn't know how to get deep post position to, give his team to help his team exploit the advantages that maybe he is given, it brought you out of the woodwork. If you're, I was going to say if you're a Tibbs critic, but those people aren't in any woodwork. They are.
No. You can find them anywhere. They're like a Dwayne Reed, man. Like, you can find one of those wherever you want. Like, they're everywhere.
I don't know if they're both still open, but there's on like an Astor Place in Manhattan, like 8th Street or St. Mark's Place, one of those where you can stand on like one spot and literally see 3 different Starbucks. That's like Tibbs critics. You just throw a stone and you'll find one. Yeah. So let's get into it. And the first thing I just want to ask you, very open-ended question, is when you watched last night's game, did you come away with one or a couple main culprits, whether that be individuals, whether that be something generally they were not doing, or was there something else that you turn your attention to?
I think there were a few main things I really took away. If I always like positives. I'm player development, so like a lot of times I'm digging into like, A, what's your strength, and then B, like, what's the box we're trying to put you in. So like I'll go that route. The one thing I took away from that game was like, I don't know what the Knicks are going to do about Cade Cunningham. Because that dude looks like he has woken up. He took a game to get adjusted to the physicality, the speed, but he looks like he's a killer whale out there and he's hunting seals. And the only one that can match him physically is OG. And anytime he sees something where he can bring Brunson up to the action or Bridges, I mean, he's hunting both of them. Cat, it doesn't matter. I came away with that guy seems like he really feels he's the best player in the gym when he steps into it, and they have no answers for him. So that was my biggest takeaway, going positive, I guess, if you're a Pistons fan.
Sure.
Yeah. The other one I really came away with was that the Knicks all season, when you and I spoke, and I've spoken to other people, it always felt like they have this thing that works if it's in ideal conditions. And they lost Hartenstein, they lost DiVincenzo, they lost Randall, they lost all these points of, creation, ball handling, shooting, these different points of gravity where they can run actions, like multiple actions, multiple side actions. And it just feels so sticky, and it feels like it's got to be Brunson in actions. And if you can take that away, the creation other places, like when it goes to Towns, when it goes to Bridges, it just feels like it's got to be them who shoots. It's not that they're going to be able to create advantages for others and we're going to get the machine moving. And I think you felt that a lot in game one, but it was masked by the turnovers they were able to create and getting out in transition and layups. And then you really felt it in game two. The Pistons didn't give the ball away. They didn't let them have advantage opportunities. They didn't get beat up on the offensive glass in the second half like they did the first game. And I think you just felt the weight of all that gravity and pressure that sits on Brunson. I think you felt it start to disperse out, and the arena felt it too, it felt like.
And anyone watching the game felt it. And I'm so happy that you said three things. You said creation, you said ball handling, and you said one other word that I thought was very accurate. But at no point did you use the word talent, which when people were coming into this series, people like me talking about, well, I know this team has been inconsistent all year, but like the talent. And I think maybe for me, what the first two games have been a brutal reminder of, although I think in my heart of hearts, I don't know that I needed the reminder, is that your talent is only as good as it fits together, and as much as it complements each other, and as much as you are able to check the most number of boxes against the most different, or the most number of opponents.
Yeah.
And so I guess I'll flip it around back to you again and ask, like, is there something you think the Pistons are doing particularly well to exploit the fact that the Knicks have these, again, it's not a talent deficit, but a specific skill deficits in certain areas for everybody outside of Jalen Brunson?
Yeah, I think there's a few points of emphasis that they're really leaning into. And in game one, it was one of those things that looked really good for the Knicks. And in the first half, like, there were a few actions that looked good, but the Pistons stayed true to, we believe that this is only good for this individual, not for their team. And it's the Karl-Anthony Towns mismatches. And, when he has a 5 on him, it's really beneficial to the Knicks. And there were only a few situations. Yes, for the team. For the team. And there were only a few situations in game one where he actually had a 5 on him and he made a 3. They got into good actions. Like, that's their most ideal pick and roll action. Like, bring the 5 up there. But the Pistons are willing to live with Tobias Harris on him and Asar Thompson. And in the first game, like, he got a few drives. He got a really nice things going. In the second game, he had a few going early. But that only leads to his offense. And I think in the second half, you saw, like, that dried up. These driving left, floating right-hand shots, like, when they go down and the crowd is feeling it, like, they're awesome. But the Pistons, like Bickerstaff and those guys, they're like, and the playoffs are this, they're a bet. You have to bet on the things you're willing to give up, because you're not going to take away everything. And they're saying, like, this is the bet we want to make. So that one really stood out to me a lot as the game wore on. And then, we're probably going to get into it, but, there's a lot of bridges. There's a lot of bridges going on. And I think they're willing to live with whatever there is from him. They're not gonna lose their cool. They're not gonna send another defender. I think those two guys, they've said, like, hey, if you beat us by scoring the ball in these matchups, cool, no problem. But we're not gonna let everybody else get these open looks, get the machine rolling, as Quinn Snyder say, get the blender going. They're not gonna give up their defensive shell for those two guys.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you contrast those two guys. And before, you talked about Julius Randle, and you talked about Dante DiVincenzo, and you talked about Isaiah Hartenstein, who, when we had our which conversation do we have where you
anyone I can talk about Isaiah Hartenstein, I'm gonna do it. I just love him. He's so good.
But it's not just that you were talking to me about how he was good. You were talking about it in a way, it wasn't the way we traditionally think of creators in the league. But he functioned as a creator for this offense in doing what he did. And then you look at a guy like Towns, and like, this is not to disparage Isaiah Hartenstein, but if you look at the skill level in terms of like what they're able to do with the basketball, they are not they're really not in the same category. And yet, for how they function on this team, when they play these good defenses, and how anyone could look at this Pistons defense at this point and be like, they're not a good defense. They're a really good defense.
They're really good.
They're really, really good. And they're well coached and they're locked in the whole thing. It begs these interesting questions. Much of the conversation last night was on who to blame for, whether you want to say Towns only got 35 touches, whether you want to say Towns only got 11 shots, whether you want to say his last shot of the game came with 5 minutes to go in the third quarter. Do you think it is that how you're looking at it? Like, even though that doesn't necessarily generate positive offense for the team as a whole, that at this point, the Knicks have no better choice but to lean into these Towns mismatches? And then I guess the follow-up question, if it's applicable, would be like, can they do so efficiently?
Yeah, I think there was something when we talk about Hartenstein. I just want to circle back to this because you saw it in the second quarter and you saw it in the first game. Mitchell Robinson gives you what he would give you in terms of offensive rebound. Like, there was a stretch in the second quarter. Brunson hit a few rebound kick out threes off of Robinson. Like, there were a few drives. Like, Hartenstein gave you that. And especially if you're going to stash 4-man on those guys, like, they're going to kill you on the glass. The difference is like Mitchell doesn't bring the first to second side DHO action, the playmaking in the pocket to the dunker, to kick out, to the floater. Like, he doesn't bring that to you. And I think that's an element they're drastically missing in this iteration of the Knicks.
I don't want to cut you up. Brunson, there was a play, I think it was in the second quarter, where Robinson was wide open in a short roll situation. Brunson tried to dump the ball into him, and I forget if he either fumbled the pass or like or he attempted to make the pass, and it just like, I think it was a turnover. Like, that's night and day between him.
Those guys don't go on trees. Like, they don't. The guys that can play make in the pocket from that size, like with that skill, where they can hit a floater if needed, they can hit a push shot, they can go finish, they can spray the ball out, they can get it and go into action on the other side. They don't grow on trees. Like, and it's not the Knicks' fault. Like, they couldn't give him enough money. They were kept. It's not their fault. Like, but he's a massive difference of what they're missing in this kind of, 5-man pot that they have out there, this kind of cauldron of skills. He's a skill that they drastically miss, the ability to take one advantage and press it into the next advantage.
Yeah. So they don't have that. In his place, they have Towns, who, again, can do a lot of great things. Do you think that there needs to be more of a forcing of the issue there?
Yeah, I mean, I was on Second Spectrum earlier. I was looking at his ISOs. He's up at 1.25 points. It's not a bad number. It's just that there's some point where you feel like, oh man, you know what? That's just him, going left, shooting right. Like, do we want that every possession? Like, and you just have to ask yourself, the Pistons are saying, yes, we'll take that every possession. It seems that the Knicks, like, if they're not leaning into it, they're saying we don't actually want that every possession. So I really do think it's going to come down to, does he dominate the Tobias Harris matchup? Because you can look everywhere else on the court and, size and strength and the matchups, like, you kind of like some of the Pistons defenders, like, they're a bigger team. Thompson is, Thompson's kind of getting his sea legs under him. You can see Brunson's got him, spinning like a top right now in terms of drawing fouls, but like, eventually he's going to catch up and know like what he can do, what he can't. There's a physicality to this Pistons team where they are dominating matchups, except that Towns is much bigger. He's much stronger than Tobias Harris. And if that's a matchup that he can go in and dominate, because that dude can score, that's going to be a big pressure point for this Knicks team because it relieves all the other stuff everywhere else.
It does, and it has not been a pressure point that they have pushed, frankly enough. I went, and if you look at field goal attempts plus free throw attempts, Jalen Brunson through 2 games of the series is at 75. Towns is at 27.
Yeah.
That's just too large gap. And I guess we'll get back to Brunson in a bit. It's interesting you just pointed out that like the Knicks maybe don't think that this is their best path to efficient offense either, because they're not going to it. And you say, okay, well then what are they doing instead? One of the things that they're doing instead was Mikal Bridges. They were going to Mikal Bridges a lot last night. He ended up with, I think, 18 shot attempts. Some of those were good. Some of those were maybe not as good. I'm struggling with Mikal right now, man. I'm not going to lie.
So there was a guy, Shammond Williams. I don't know if you remember Shammond Williams.
I remember the name.
Yeah. So when he was at Carolina, like incredible shooter, awesome player. When he was young at Carolina, freshman, sophomore year, he told us this story when he was back. Like people would say, like when he had the ball playing point guard, every possession was an experience. Anything could happen. It could be the most wonderful thing. It could be the most awful thing. That's what I felt last night watching Bridges. Like it's one of those things where he's not scared of the moment. Like credit to him. He is finding open space. He is doing things like he thinks he can make it happen. Like, but every single possession is an experience and you have no idea what's going to end up. Like he was calling for a post ISO on somebody and hit a turnaround. He also could go ahead and ISO at the top of the key and miss a 3 by a mile. You never know what's going to happen when he's on the court. And it's not really a nice feeling when you're talking about a guy who's supposed to be a really important role and a steady presence on the team. When you feel that when he has the ball on offense and then you feel like there's no chance he can really guard Cade and he's kind of hunting him right now, that's not a great combination for him on the court as in terms of what they gave up and what they thought he was going to be.
Well, and not only that, but in terms of who he is, it wasn't viewed this way at the time of the trade. It turns out he was brought in to replace Donte DiVincenzo. And Donte DiVincenzo offered this very, I don't want to say finite skill set, but like you knew exactly what you were going to get from Donte DiVincenzo every time he stepped foot on the court. And some of those ways were more traditional, like box score stuff. Like he's going to get up a certain number of threes. They're going to be a certain type of threes. And then some of it is intangible stuff that I think helped this fan base. I'm sure your brother is included, fall in love with this team last year. Bridges is not that. And yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to talk about Beasley because Beasley and DiVincenzo fit the same. They fit the same archetype, right? And it's a very specific skill set, but it's a skill set that amplifies your star player and is also amplified by your star player as Brunson. And you saw it last night. There were 2 pick and rolls late in the game, and Beasley did not have a good night shooting the ball, but he was a threat out there. He's going to let it fly, and he pulls a certain gravity to you. And DiVincenzo did this. And if you go back and look at the 2 pick and rolls, Duren got a dunk on a lob, 92-90, and Beasley
massive. Right? It ended the run.
Right, and they schematically put him where his defender, I think it was McBride, was going to be the single side tag guy who's supposed to be low man help. And so his gravity, it doesn't matter that he's 1 for 8. You're not going to leave him. You're just not going to leave him and give up wide open shots. And so this allows for a lob to happen. There was another one with Reed earlier in the game where the same exact thing happened. He's the single side tag guy. And so these type of schematic things that you can put in place to try to use the energy and the gravity and the two coming to the ball for Brunson, where it's the 2 coming to the ball for Cade. Like these are the things where you can open up things where Mitchell Robinson looks like Isaiah Hartenstein, right? He doesn't have to do anything. He just has to go dunk. But when it's not DiVincenzo in that corner, when it's Bridges or Hart, anybody like that, well, of course, low man help is going to be in there meeting the roller. And then they're just going to close out and live with whatever happens on this closeout of Bridges or Hart. And those are the type things where it's not always about the makes and misses. It's about what process you can create with these different skill sets on the court to piggyback your point, to not be put in specific boxes. And that right now is what the Pistons have a little bit more than the Knicks.
And, you could start to build the picture, start to paint the picture of, well, how does an upset happen? Cade Cunningham, as you just referenced before, has to play like one of the 10 best players in the league. And I don't know that he's been at that level for both games, but he is certainly trending in that way. And I thought he played at that level last night in the Game 2 win. So there's Cade at the center of it. You give him Beasley. And then in terms of some of the other, obviously, again, skill sets. Is Jalen Duren individually, does he have the number of skills that Karl-Anthony Towns does? No. What does he do? He sets nasty screens, number one. Oh my God. I didn't. That's my bad. I did not realize.
A brick wall.
I didn't realize that. Yeah, he was that to that level. Speaking of Isaiah Hartenstein, something Isaiah Hartenstein brought that they miss. Jalen Duren does a lot of that, and he has been relentless on the glass. Last night, 13 rebounds, 4 on the offensive glass. You could also talk about Asar Thompson. So again, Asar Thompson doesn't shoot it. What can he do elsewhere? He can get you 3 offensive rebounds, including a couple of big ones last night. So you're putting together these skill sets, and then you get the picture of the Pistons. And then on the other side of the ball, when the Knicks are defending, they have all these very good defenders, but they also have some weak ones. And I thought it was fascinating that what was the Pistons' first adjustment last night to bring it back to Bridges? We're going to try to switch Cade and get Bridges as the defender, which is like...
One time they avoided it. They avoided it. He avoided a switch. He tried to push up against his defender towards the Pistons bench earlier in the game, and Cade goes. I mean, you can't have this guy. The whole theory is like wing stop, right? Like you have to be able to throw this guy on somebody and shut off the water. And the fact that like the best guy on the court is actively hunting you out, and we don't want to give the switch, that's fine if it's Brunson, and they're going to have to figure out what they want to do with Brunson because they're bringing him into the action at will. But if you have to hide 2 of those pieces on the perimeter along with Towns in the action, like on the backside, like that's a lot to try to cover up. I want to say positive things about the Knicks. People are going to hate me. My brother-in-law is going to hate me.
No,
can you throw me some things where I can say positive things about this New York team?
I am, but it would be irresponsible of me not to at least point out one more Bridges moment. You mentioned the one. There was another where they got the switch, and it was, and Cade was. It was on the right side. He was going into a drive, and Bridges fouled him before he even had a chance to like put the ball on the floor, as if to say, I don't know what it was to say. Like, I can't handle this matchup, or I would rather, this is untenable for me right now. Yeah. I don't know. It was a little unsettling. All right, let's end with some positives, because you're right. People are going to hate you, and I don't want them because today.
Let me say nice things, man. Let me say nice things.
So, despite the fact that the Knicks did all of this stuff wrong last night, and boy, did they do a whole lot of stuff wrong, this was a tie game with a minute to go, you know? And I think even though they have not found the best ways to leverage the respective skill sets of their pieces, I still give them a good chance to win the series. What do you think that they are doing well that you would lean into over the remaining however many games it is?
Yeah, I think they're going to have to put a few things together in terms of thought process that they want to do. I think 2 things they're going to have to solve on the defensive end are going to be, what do they want to do when Brunson's in the action? Because Cade has gotten a taste of bringing him up into it. And the first game, he didn't hunt it as much. The second game, he really went after it. So they're going to have to figure out, like, do we want to blitz this action and play on the backside? Like, this is theoretically Brunson's guarding the least, potent offensive perimeter player. Like, do we want to try to just be aggressive in this? Do we want to switch it? Like, are we going to stick with this same thing? So I think that's one thing they have to get a clear plan on and change up a little bit of what they're doing, because you can't give Cade too much of a steady diet of something. Like, he's getting used to this.
He's going to figure it out.
Yeah. I think the other part on defense is they're going to have to figure out what to do with Bridges. And I think a lot of it is, I think he's a good defensive player. I think that Cade's a little strong for him right now, but I think he's going to have to meet this matchup with a little bit more aggression. I think he's going to have to accept this challenge, and I think he's capable of it. I think those things, getting them out in transition, is a big key, because the size and the speed of the Pistons when they get in the half court is really tricky. So getting out in transition is going to be a big key. And then I think finding a way to get another ball handler in there with Brunson, whether it's Payne, whether it's Deuce McBride, getting some more of those minutes and figuring out how to get Brunson running off screens. He had one where in front of the Pistons bench where they tried to gap the action, and he had a beautiful, flare shot prep footwork where he hit a 3 in front of the Pistons bench. I think getting the actions where he's not bringing the ball up and everybody is staring at him for the whole possession, and then they're trying to attack, getting the shell moving, getting things moving where he's not holding it is going to be a big key. Because when he catches it on the run, when he catches it on the move with a little bit of advantage, he's a lot better against these stronger, more athletic players when he's got a little momentum going with them. From a standstill, it's tough. And then the next thing on offense is like, Cat's got to be that guy. Like, he's got to be that guy. They got to say, look, Tobias Harris, steady vet, wonderful guy, amazing human, but like, he can't guard you. And it's got to be something where he just puts himself out there and says, like, look, I'm one of those guys and you can't single cover me with somebody smaller than me. I'm going to punish everything. So to me, those are the things. If I look to them in Detroit, what do I really want to see? I want to see more movement from Brunson before the action starts. And I want to see Cat really establish himself as like, you know what? There's a reason they brought me in here. I'm going to go get 40 tonight. It's
fascinating you bring up Payne because he's obviously the hero of game one and plays 4 minutes last night. And I pointed it out on the post game. I thought it was frankly bizarre that Tibbs in the first quarter brought in Payne for Brunson when Towns was not on the floor. And I'm sure you know the numbers. Payne and Cat this season together in a not insignificant sample size have been just utterly dynamite together. And that's traditionally when they bring Payne in, Cat is also in the game. Mm-hmm. That was not the case. And shockingly, Payne did not look good. Yeah. And in part because he didn't look good, and probably, because of the score of the game, Tibbs didn't bring him back in the second half. I think that's an interesting way to go, especially since Payne and Brunson had their most extended stretch of playing together in game one, and it was extraordinarily successful. Obviously, it was during that run, which again, I know there's a little bit of lightning in the bottle, but still. So I wonder if maybe we see a little bit more of that. I mean, the Towns thing, there's really not much more you could say there. I completely agree. Let me ask you one more thing, because we've talked about this in the past, and then I know I got to let you go. Josh Hart, you've talked a lot about, all right, how do you mitigate the shooting stuff? You bring him into the action. I feel like they've done some of that here in this series. I don't know that they have done enough of it, frankly, to mitigate Hart's what he takes away. At the same time, the notion of taking Josh Hart off the court, like I was watching that game last night, and I it's like these two sides of your brain where you're like, clearly he is messing up the spacing, and clearly he's making it harder for you to score. And yet he, as my colleague DJ Zullo put it, seemed to be the only guy who was up for that moment from tip off. So I don't know what you do, but I'll just ask you about it. Like, what would you do with Hart? Like, either on the floor, would you take him off the floor? Anything?
He's such a barometer for them. Like when he plays well, they're so difficult to beat. Because when you get stuff from him, whether it's shooting or playmaking and getting downhill, like when you get stuff from him, that's when everything starts rolling for them. All the advantages start compounding in the same way we talked about Hartenstein last year. Like he's one of those guys that when everything starts going well and when he's feeling it, generally you're going to see really good performances from this team. So I think you're right. I think bringing him up into the action is going to be a key. I think that Brunson has shown that you're going to have to, like, I'm not going to stop. Brunson's going to shoot the ball. And if you don't bring two to the ball on Brunson, like this team is willing to live and die with what he does in terms of putting the ball in the basket. And he had two really rough shooting games, and this could easily turn around and they could win two in Detroit if he shoots the ball well, because that's a real thing for them. So I think putting him and Josh Hart in actions together, especially if he's going to be guarded by Duren or Paul Reed, like bringing these guys up as much as possible to be involved in Brunson stuff is a huge key for this team. And I think it can create those dominoes downhill that you really want to see, where Cat can be spacing, OG can be spacing. We talked about this last time. Bridges can be in the dunker. Like those actions are things that I really want to see from them schematically, and to see how the Pistons respond to it.
Yeah. And I like that you ended with that. See how the Pistons respond. It does not feel like, certainly not in game two. Game one, yeah, maybe, but not in game two. It doesn't feel like they've been putting enough pressure on the Pistons to respond to what we could do. There's been a lot of what are the Knicks doing to respond to what the Pistons are doing, not the other way around. That has to change. Look, there's 2 days between game 2 and game 3, and then 2 more days between game 3 and game 4. I know it feels like the sky is falling right now. I'm happy you wanted to spin it around to some positives, because, This is still a capable team. I'll just end by asking you if you, I don't know if you made a prediction for the series, but if you want to make a prediction now after 2 games, feel free. And then before I let you go, anything you want to plug or promote before we get out of here?
Well, we were texting before, and I actually thought that this was going to be something where the Knicks were going to be the ones to be the dominant aggressors. They were going to be the ones to set the status quo. They were going to be the ones to dictate terms in this series with Brunson, with Hart, with these dominoes that they can make fall. What's been really interesting to me is seeing them be the ones responding to the Pistons, and especially Cade. Cade has been one of the biggest revelations this season in terms of taking a step forward as a player. And this playoff series, like just the 2 games in, you can already see him making massive strides in terms of understanding how this type of basketball works, how this iteration of the game, 82 is different than 16. So, to me, like, I think they're going to have to come up with something for him that's a little different than what they had before, because they were in this middle ground of like, we're kind of going to blitz them. We're kind of going to switch them. Where I think they have to make a clear decision that, man, like, you know what, this dude actually can beat us 4 times out of 7, and we got to do something different. And whether that's, giving up some shots to Beasley, some shots to Tim Hardaway, some shots to Tobias Harris, like, I think that has to be the game plan for the Knicks going in to Detroit. And to me, if they come with that game plan, I think they have a chance to come out of this series. It does seem difficult to see them coming out if they don't change up and attack Cade and make him not be the one to beat them. So to me, I'm going to sit on the fence. I don't want to pick anybody in this. I don't want to pick anybody. I just really don't.
But that says a lot. That says a lot.
Yeah.
You are comfortable sitting here and making a pick. Where can people find you, and what should they look out for from you coming up?
Yeah, Low Man Help, the Substack. We're subscribed to by about 100 to 200 NBA personnel. I don't check daily. About half the league's GMs tap in and read the newsletter. So catch it there. And then this playoffs, I'm going to be doing a little bit of a film series for the guys, Adam Mares and Tim Legler over at All NBA. So pop on over to their YouTube channel, check out the stuff there, and got the first couple coming today. I'm really excited about them.
Listen, if you're listening to this and you are not yet subscribed to Low Man Hope and you're not listening to everything he puts out, Marc Campbell is a rising star. I shouldn't even call you a rising star. You're already a star in the basketball analytics game. And pretty soon you're going to be too busy to come on this podcast. So I got to continue to take advantage of being able to get you while I can. Go subscribe. You won't find better analysis out there on the league. You obviously you've written a lot and talked about the Knicks a lot this season. You've had amazing guests on, D'Antoni, Danny Green, obviously multiple times, the Danny Green All-Stars. It just phenomenal stuff from you. Appreciate you taking the time today. I hope that next time I have you on, it's in a bit of a more, positive mood.
Yeah, man. I tell you what, the Knicks really messed me up. I was in my head when I was watching, I was like, man, I'm going to get to talk all this positive stuff at halftime. I was like, this is going to be great. This is, Macri's going to love me. My brother-in-law.
I still love you.
I was like, my brother-in-law is going to be so happy. I'm going to text him when I'm done. Be like, man, check out Knicks Film School. You're not going to believe this stuff. And then all of a sudden it just, and I'm like, man, I got to go on there and say mean things. This isn't going to be fun at all.
No, it was actually a lot of fun. And for me, was it G.I. No, not G.I. Joe. What's knowing is half the battle? Is that reading Rainbow or something? No, that's not it. What's the phrase?
Is that the Magic School Bus?
Oh, maybe it is. I don't know. Knowing is half the battle. I at least like knowing that I am fully informed, because it's the uncertainty that bugs me the most. But I feel like I got a very good idea of what the hell's going on in the series.
Can I ask you one question before we leave?
Sure. Yeah, let's go.
Because this is like, my brother-in-law is my pulse of Knicks fandom, and I gotta feel this out. I gotta get the middle. He's way over here. I gotta get the middle on the opinion. Say this doesn't go well.
Okay.
Say for whatever reason, like there isn't a response and this doesn't go well. Who does the axe come down on? Would you put this more on Tibbs? Would you put this more on Leon Rose in terms of roster construction? Like in your head as a fan, like who is this coming down on? Who's the fall guy here?
I think, as I make this analogy a lot, I think it's a Venn diagram, because if you're Leon Rose, and they've largely done a great job of this, at least the last few years, up until maybe this summer. Part of your job, if you're going to have Tom Thibodeau as your coach, is to make sure you get a Tom Thibodeau team for Tom Thibodeau to coach. Mm-hmm. And this is not that team. And so is that on Leon? Is it on Tibbs for needing certain types of players to work in how he goes about his business? What does Tibbs always say? The game tells you what to do. It is now, I think, perhaps painfully clear after 84 games that either this collective of players is not able to listen to what the game is telling them to do, or like signals are getting crossed, or they need something else besides the game to tell them what to do. They need the coach to draw up a little bit more in terms of like, you go here, you go there. And this is like, and that's maybe not happening. Tibbs will take the fall. I do not believe there's any scenario where Leon would lose his job, although I do think there could be changes in the front office. In particular, I would not want to be one of the folks who championed the Mikal Bridges trade if I was hoping to have sustained job security past this summer. To me, the biggest question is not whether the coach keeps his job, because I at this point just don't think he is. To me, it's more, do you think a different coach is going to come in here and be able to make hay with this collection of players, or does there need to be a somewhat substantial changing out of a piece or pieces, which then gets into a whole host of other questions that, I'm going to talk about a lot this summer, I'm sure, which is like, getting value, and like, if you're making moves, like what are you looking at? Who are you trying to get in here? And so I think to answer your question in short, it's complicated, but
you're like me trying to make a series prediction here.
I know. Look, I think it's a multitude of parties that are responsible here.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think
Fair.
that's the easiest. I think that's the easiest answer. And if they lose the series, there's going to be, Fred Katz came on this pod, said it a few weeks ago. Like there's going to be big changes. So
heads will roll.
Heads will roll, as they say. Your head's not going to roll because you're great. Thank you, Marc, for coming on again. Low Man Help on Substack. That's where you can find all of Marc's stuff. Be sure to subscribe there. And I think I'm going to sign us off because I'm going to do a short intro before this. So everybody, thanks for checking out another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. Be back with more fun and games before you know it. Take care.